Today, we're joined by Marty Grunder. It's been more than 2.5 years since we've had Marty on the show. Initially, we talked about the initial consultation and pre-qualifying clients, two excellent topics, and Marty hit it out of the park with those topics. Now we've got you back for some more here. Marty is the founder and CEO of GLC and founder and president of Grow Group, where he helps green industry professionals grow their businesses, and the host of the Grow Show. Marty, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you, Michael. Happy to be here. Appreciate it.
Marty, we got to know a little bit more about you and your, I guess, your career path in the green industry the last time we had you on the show. Something that came up in my feed lately, and I think it was the Grow Group that posted this, was a video of, I believe, 16-year-old Marty rolling around on a zero turn and cutting lawns there. That was quite the thing to see. Really cool. Can you tell us
Yeah,
a
it's
little bit
pretty
more
cool.
about that? You're starting there and what
Yeah,
that kind
so
of brought up?
yeah, so I was actually 17 in the picture, and I wish I could tell you I was on a zero turn. I was on a Kubota tractor. There
Oh,
weren't zero turns. There was a zero turn called a Yazoo that was a very primitive zero turn, but we're talking almost 40 years ago. So equipment has come a long, long way. Yeah, but that was I appeared on a local TV news story, and it was about our business, and it was about the local Holiday Inn that didn't pay their bill, and I used the TV station to help us get paid. So there's a whole side of that story you didn't see in the little clip that we posted that's really quite funny. But every time I see that clip, Michael, and I watch it about once or twice a year, and oftentimes when I'm speaking, as you know, as a speaker in the green industry, oftentimes when I'm speaking, I will use that clip. Most of the time, it's when I close, because I want people to understand that we all start someplace, and I don't drive by young guys and young gals that are new to the business doing work that's not as nice as the work as I do here. Okay, I don't laugh at them. I don't make fun. I look and I applaud them. I applaud them for trying because, Michael, as you can probably imagine, the first several jobs that we did were horrible. And everybody starts someplace, okay? And we all are at a certain stage in our life. And I think what's more important is that you have a drive and a desire to get better than anything else. So that clip means a lot to me, and I'm really glad that I kept it. So
definitely. Did you end up getting paid from that clip?
we did. It's a crazy story. They only owed me $80, but $80 back in 1984 was a lot of money. And yeah, we did get paid. It was probably the greatest single collection strategy I've ever seen anybody execute.
What motivated you back then to start that landscaping business, and what was the trajectory of, did you go to college and still continue to do that business, or did you just go right from high school into starting your business and continuing that?
No, I actually, my mom and dad were both college educated, Michael, and they were not business people at all. So I scared them a lot with what I was doing. By the time I was a sophomore at the University of Dayton, which is a Catholic school within the city limits of the city of Dayton, it's a great school. I loved it. Made a lot of friends. Still involved there today. By the time I was a sophomore there, we were doing almost $200,000 a year in business. By the time I was a senior, we were closing in on $500,000, and I used my degree in business, and I just kept going. I never, to say I've never worked for anyone else is wrong, because I've worked for thousands of people. I've had thousands of bosses. I mean, the company has, conducted over $200 million in landscaping in the Dayton area in the last 40 years. So I've had a lot of bosses, but I just kept doing it. And at first, I had a little bit of an issue. I didn't really want to keep doing it. I was a little jealous of all my friends that were getting sign-on bonuses. Now, this is 1990, Michael, so this is a long time ago. They were getting sign-on bonuses, and they were going and buying suits at Men's Warehouse, and I'm cutting grass and ruining my work boots, getting a new pair of work boots every 8 months. So, but I stuck with it, and it just to say I knew I would be doing what I'm doing now back then, no. I did not have any plans of the sort. I just got up every day and worked hard and tried to get better. And then it was almost like one day I woke up and was like, this is a pretty serious business and I can do something with this. And then I just kept going. And now you know, I don't have more money than I know what to do with, Michael, but I have a lot of things monetarily. Uh, I have a nice home. I have a nice third car. I got a Bronco. It's not a Maserati, but I got a Bronco. I mean, I have a lot of things that I never really thought that I would have, and it's all been provided by this landscaping business. We've never hit any triples or home runs ever in 40 years. We just haven't. But every year we hit singles and doubles, and we do what we say we're going to do, and we hustle and we work hard and put money away in a 401k, and always tried to live below my means. And now at age 56, I'm in a really good spot, not just financially, but emotionally. Like I'm happy with my life. Are there things that I look back and wish I would have done differently? And do I wonder what would have happened if I worked for a corporation? Would my talents have translated there? I mean, yeah, sure, I wonder about that. But I got 4 kids, I have a granddaughter, I have a wife of 31 years. They all don't mind spending time with me. I get to do cool things like this, talk to young entrepreneurs like yourself, and hopefully help others grow. So I feel very blessed and very fortunate to have what I have, Michael.
Definitely. You did mention there that something clicked and you thought you could make something of this in your business. What was it? Was it a slow progression to get to that point, or was it all of a sudden you hired somebody that you knew you could, maybe get yourself out of the field a little bit more and focus more on the business? Or was it a certain revenue point that you got to? What was it that kind of, okay, it clicked, I can make something of this?
I remember when I first made $100,000, and I told my dad that, and he could not believe that basically I was making more money than my mom and my dad combined. I mean, they just couldn't even comprehend that. And I remember when I told them that, my dad chuckled and he's like, "Well, I think you probably ought to stick with this then." And I just remember being like so proud that my dad said that. And about that time, that was around when I was 27. And about that time, my buddies that I still remain close to today, they were starting to complain about their jobs and the lack of freedom that they had and their boss, and that they really didn't like sitting in an office all day doing engineering work, or, you know, driving city to city selling things. And I just started to, you know, really become a student of entrepreneurship and study other entrepreneurs and seeing what they did and how they did it. And I I don't know, my wife's father was an entrepreneur, and I saw what he did and how hard he worked, and it just seemed like this is what I was meant to do, and I just kept sticking with it.
Nice. When it comes to, and something that's been on my mind lately, and I've been having more and more guests on the show to talk about, is employees. And it's something that this year we're kind of focusing on with the podcast. So I want to talk to you about hiring and finding employees and giving employees a career path within your business. I guess we can start from the beginning there and hiring and what that kind of process looks like. Is there any tips or tricks in terms of the interview process, the finding of the employees, that initial process of, is this person going to be a good fit in our business? I've heard a lot of different things, so I'll just leave it with you for that, Marty. Basically, where does that kind of process start with GLC?
You know, gosh, we could talk for seriously, we could probably come on each day for the next 3 months talking about this. Uh, it it's a struggle, and the hundreds of landscaping companies that we work with on an annual basis at the Grow Group, it's a struggle for all them. I've been in business 40 years, and it's a struggle here, Michael. I'm in the Steel Studios on the campus of Grunder Landscaping, and we struggle with that too. Like, it's none of us are going to escape it. I would think if you've got somebody coming on your podcast and telling you they have hiring figured out, I'm sorry, they're lying. They don't. It's just a constant moving target. And I guess I would back up. I mean, it's a fairly commonly held belief. It's not hard to understand that your company's success has a lot to do with your clarity of purpose. And what I mean by that is, who's our ideal client? And for us, when we teach that here at the Grow Group, the ideal client is the intersection between who do you make the most money off of, which ones do you enjoy working with, all right, and which ones are sustainable. And sustainable, we mean like which ones can we build a business around. I'd love to tell you that if you go on the Grunder Landscaping website and you look at some of those large, elaborate, some of them are $1 million jobs we've done, that's all we do, and yada. We don't. We do one or two big jobs a year. Most of our jobs are in the $10,000 to $30,000 range on the landscape side. And then we do a tremendous amount of maintenance, but it's just not sustainable. That's what I mean by that. So the same thing goes for, once you identify who your ideal client is, identifying that ideal team member. If you're predominantly commercial maintenance focused or predominantly residential focused, it's maintenance, you might have a lot of work visas that you rely on that make your company work. And even on the design build side, you may be the same. But what I'm getting at is, if you know who your ideal client is, you should also have a profile for an ideal team member. And I think where we go wrong is, we work with a lot of guys and gals in the Grow Group that they still work in the field a lot. And so it's hard for them to catch their breath and to do an interview. It's hard for them in some cases to have office hours to try to find time to interview. And then where do you interview? And you're competing against all of the restaurants and the Amazons and all the other companies that would take an hourly worker. We're not having a tremendous problem finding professionals to add to our staff, and we don't have a whole lot of, everyone in our company is a professional. But what I'm getting at is, we don't have a hard time finding salespeople or other management positions. That's not as hard as finding labor. I would assume your listeners, the struggle is labor. I know, like at my house, I'm trying to find a contractor to kind of do a mini remodel on our bathroom. Can't find anybody. Found a guy and he said, I'd love to come see you, but I don't have any employees, so I couldn't even do the work this year. So you were seeing a lot of that. So, from a commonsensical approach, Michael, the best way to find people is to make your place a great place to work. And I think we forget that. We focus on some other things rather than that. Not creating a culture that someone else would want to work in. I think a lot like, would I want to work for me? If I went to work for Michael at your company, what would I want? My son worked here for 3 years while I was going through college. When my older daughters all got their first job and would come home and would talk to me, and I would hear them tell me some things, I'm like, what a bunch of idiots. What are they doing? Why would they treat you like that? But I also heard a lot of, man, you mean they did an orientation for you and the owner took you out to lunch and talked to you about where the company was going? Yeah. Well, I need to do that. I'm not doing that. My people have no idea where we're trying to go or what we're trying to do. So we could have a very, very long, discussion here. But I think at the end of the day, you got to understand what kind of work culture you want. Look around the existing team you have, or think about the team members that you've had in the past that have been successful. And what were the traits? Did they come from a particular part of town? Were they from a farming community? Did you tap into a vein of volunteer firefighters that also wanted to work for you 4 days a week so they could balance that? Trying to see in the past where we've had success, and that has helped us. We're currently interviewing for an open position we have here at Grunder Landscaping. We put the bait in the water out on Indeed. We've had 5 candidates respond that got beyond the initial interview that we thought we wanted to interview. 2 of them never showed up, Michael. The other 3 were all between 5 and 30 minutes late for the interview. And I think by me telling you the story, you'll see where I'm coming from, and maybe your listeners will have the courage to do what I did not do 25 years ago. 25 years ago, Michael, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm sorry you're late. Let's talk. and then I'd hire them, and then they're on time for work 2 weeks, and then guess what starts happening? They're late. They got another problem. There's all this going on, and they turn into a high maintenance team member that you just want to get rid of, and you're trying to figure out how to get rid of them. Well, we've learned enough now that if when you come to that interview, you're never going to look better, be better, smell better, appear better. We're never going to need you more than we do right now. So the easy thing to say is to overlook any inadequacies you see, overlook the fact that they were late, but we don't do that anymore. We send them all on their way, even though we need someone, even though we really need someone. We send them on their way because introducing a poor performer, which your behavior is really going to indicate what we're going to see from you going forward. It's probably not going to be better. It's probably going to be worse because you're on an interview. I mean, it's kind of like when you sell your house, you put up for sale, you clean it, right? I mean, you go crazy. It's, it's just how life is. You're going on an interview, you're gonna be on your best, not your worst. So I think that's what I would like your listeners to take away, that no matter how bad you need some, remember that whoever you add to your team, they're either impressing everyone or they're depressing everyone. And if they're depressing everyone, you can actually make an argument that the company got worse. And what ends up happening when we add bad actors or bad performers to a good team, the good team, they can get tired of that. And they may just say, Michael, look, I like you, but I found another job. And you may not find out the real reason. You may think it's because Amazon's going to pay them more, but maybe Charlie, who you hired last month, drives them crazy, and they're a non-confrontational person, so they don't come to you and say, look, either Charlie goes or I go. They just leave. They just leave the organization. So hiring is a really difficult thing. We do a really good job at that here at Grunder, but that's after 40 years, Michael. I mean, I ought to be pretty good at that by now. Some other tips to give you on the interview. We have 110 employees, 110 team members now. So I don't interview anybody anymore. The only time they get me involved, on rare occasions when we're hiring a salesperson or an upper level manager and they want to get my take because it's not clear to them if this person is a fit or not, I'll get involved. But I stay out of it. I don't stay out of it because I'm, quote, too busy. I don't stay out of it because I think I'm so important. I stay out of it because they're going to be working with them. They own it. And I have to let them know that they own it, that it's their responsibility. If I still say, well, you go ahead and you call through all of them and then I'll come in and interview them. If you think about that, I'm basically saying, look, I only think you're so smart. I'm never going to let you hire somebody. So, those that are listening to your podcast today, Michael, that, maybe they have 20 people, I'd say at that level, really even over 10, it's time to get someone else involved in the hiring. It's time to have a profile of what an ideal team member would look like. It's time to in that process of developing that profile of an ideal team member, look who around that you like. Look who you'd like to clone, and then go and interview accordingly. If you really like Jimmy because Jimmy is organized and he's on time, then you don't go to your candidate and say, hey, now organization's important to you, right? Being on time is important to you. What do you think they're going to say? You ask them questions like, tell us what's important in a great employee at a landscaping company. Tell us about some conflicts that you had at your prior job with supervision and how you handled it. Tell us what you do for fun. We had somebody years ago when I was interviewing him for a landscaping position on the crew. I asked them what they did for fun, and they said, well, I sure as hell don't do landscaping because after doing that all day, I don't want to do that crap. Well, Michael, we didn't hire that person, all right, because you're referring to our profession as crap, and that just was a bad omen. So looking for people that have a passion for landscaping, looking for people that have had prior experience getting along with people. We love hiring former athletes. If they were on a high school football team, we love that. Um, if they went to college and they worked to get through college, we love that. So those are just some things I think to look for. It is a very difficult thing, the process of hiring. We're doing this podcast here in the spring when, you know, no matter how big or small or experienced your company is, every landscaper is busy in the spring. Something is seriously wrong with you if you're not busy in April, May, and June. I mean, it's everybody can find work. It's beyond that. So right now, faced with trying to get work done, make payroll, all those other things, I think we end up settling a lot and bring people into our organization that we think on the surface are going to help us, and they don't. They actually hurt the organization.
There's a lot of things to go off of with what you're just talking about there. One thing that came to mind was with how long you guys have been in business for, has the reputation that you've built or invested in the local community, has that helped in any way in attracting people, or is that more the admin professional side of things rather than the labor? What has that sort of reputation build helped with in hiring?
Well, that's helped tremendously. I mean, we have 40 years of trying to do the right thing, 40 years of giving back to the community, 40 years of treating people fairly. Um, if you go on Google, sure, we have a couple disgruntled people that got terminated because of their behavior, their performance, and they go online and say, Marty's a ruthless, soulless, you know what? But we push the limit on what we can do. We try to do as many benefits as we can. We try to make this a great place to work. We survey our team once a year. We're constantly having feedback. That's one of my jobs as in my role here is to be listening to our people. I was on 3 job sites this morning. How's it going? What's going on? How's your truck? How's the job going? How's the family? I want our people to know that we care about them. So yeah, sure, the reputation absolutely has helped, but your reputation can get ruined in a heartbeat. So it's not like you say, well, we got reputation figured out, so we don't have to worry about that. No, we got to keep, as we get bigger and bigger, we got to tell, listen, you got my last name on your shirt. You've got to act in a certain way. I mean, we have core values we talk about all the time. We have 8 non-negotiable statements that we recite with our team. So, that's all very intentional. There's a certain way that you've got to behave if you want to work here. We're not your average landscaping company, and you know, we're not a fit for everyone, Michael. And I think maybe that's hard to understand and to cope with. But when you get tough like that and you really take the hiring serious, that again, this person is either going to impress everyone or depress them, that's a big deal.
Core values, how important is that to building a business and attracting those ideal not only clients but also employees? You mentioned the 8 statements as well. Is that part of the core values, and what goes into those core values?
Core values are beliefs and behavior that are present in an organization that enables them to win. Their core values is what's going on when ownership or management's not looking. Quality, leadership, teamwork, and profitability are our 4 core values. Every morning, the entire production team meets in a circle. This morning was like any other morning. We recite them in English, we recite them in Spanish, we recite our mission statement. We hire to them, we fire to them. So those are important. The non-negotiable statements, we don't share those publicly. Those are an internal thing, but I'll tell you, like, for example, one of them talks about our image and what the 4 core values mean and how important our image is. Another one talks about just how you conduct yourself here. You don't just throw your hands up and say, I give up, somebody's got to help me. You Google it, you spend some time trying to learn it on your own before you just throw your hands up and say, I don't know what to do. You're going to have to help me. Because if we don't grow our people, if they don't start figuring out that they own their jobs and the responsibilities of them, and somebody's going to bail them out of every situation we get into, we're never going to grow. So yeah, the core values are tremendously important. every company, whether they have them posted or not, Michael, has core values. I could look in your checkbook. I could go on your, I could spend a morning with you, Michael, walking your job sites, talking to your people, looking in your checkbook, looking at your trucks, taking a peek in the bathroom that you have your people use. And I can tell you pretty quickly what's important to you. You know, this sounds rudimentary, but I can't tell you how many on-site consultations I've done where I've had to tell the owners of the company to clean up the bathroom. Like your team's going in there every day. You really want them going in a, you know what? So those, you and I, as owners of our company, we have to be great at what we want our followers to be good at. We have a bullseye on our back, and rightfully so. And the sooner everyone understands that and operates with that understanding, the better. I can't tell my team to keep their truck clean if my own truck's not clean. I can't tell, I had to tell a young man on a job site this morning to tuck his shirt in. Well, guess who else's shirt's tucked in? Mine, you know? So, and I think oftentimes we don't realize that what we're doing is speaking so loud, no one can hear what you're saying. And there's a lot of disconnects in American small business, Canadian small business, where people just, they don't realize that what they're doing is says a lot. The bathroom that our crew uses, we just renovated a couple years ago, and it's amazing what stuff costs, but we spent $35,000 to renovate the bathroom here for the team because it needed to be made bigger, and we gutted the whole thing. We put in all new fixtures, all new tiles, a brand new floor, and that thing gets cleaned about 3 times a week. And the guy you're looking at right now talking to, I clean it 1 day a week. Okay, that's how important that is to me. And that's I think where that's the difference between an owner, in my mind, an owner that gets it and has people that want to work for him or her and wants to be part of the cause, and one that doesn't. Um, I can't tell you how many owners I see driving around in a Ford King Ranch pickup truck or a Yukon Denali, and then they got their team in a truck they wouldn't want to ride in, you know? So again, what we're doing speaks so loudly, I can't even hear what you're saying. I think it was Mark Twain maybe that said that. But those are things. And again, Michael, that's not stuff I knew when I was your age. I didn't know that. And to be honest with you, if somebody would have told me that, I'm not even sure I would have understood it because I was so busy on this treadmill trying to make my business work. And you know, I didn't ask for help early enough. I didn't go and get a right hand man early enough. I didn't hire the Grow Group. I don't recall there being a company like the Grow Group that you could hire when I was in my 20s to help me make my team, my team and my company better. So it's a process.
Definitely. And speaking about the process of a career path and creating that process within your business to show people that you might identify early on or later on to show them that there's a career in this industry for you. How early on do you present that career path to an employee? And what does that look like? Is it tailored specifically to what you think their strengths are, or do you show them different paths that they can go through? What does that career path kind of look like?
Michael, in the last 3 years, we've tripled the size of the business, and all that growth is directly attributed to what is our philosophy here. Our mission statement is to create opportunities for our team to grow and succeed by enhancing the beauty and value of every client's property while exceeding their expectations every step of the way. The best reason to grow a company, as my longtime friend and mentor, Mike Rory from Ground Systems said, the best reason to grow a company, as Mike said, is that you have so many good people, they're pushing you. And if you don't grow and create more opportunities, they're going to leave. So what we realized was we had a lot of very talented people, and we needed to grow so that we could put a number 2 guy on a crew to have his own crew. So we could put a longtime team leader into a group leader position that would then manage 5 or 6 crews. We had somebody managing that we wanted to move up to sales. So there's an ebbs and flow. We started another company called Grunder Green, which is our foray into lawn care because we had someone that wanted another opportunity. So when you start with that philosophy, and then when someone starts and you say, hey, that's Brian over there. Brian started out watering plants in the plant yard, and now he runs our entire lawn care operation. That's Brent. Brent started out on the crew, ran the department. Now he's our number one salesperson in the entire company. You know, that's Sherry. Sherry started out as our basically our receptionist. Now she's our accounting assistant. So it's one thing to show, we don't show an org chart that has everyone's name on that, but we show an org chart that just shows boxes like how big the company is. And we want to be a $30 million a year company by 2030. So we know how many more trucks that is. We know how many more people that is. And newsflash, there's not enough people here to do 30 million in business. So there are all kinds of opportunities, and we're painting that picture constantly with some visual aids. We have a monthly meeting with the entire company called Grow. That's what we call it. And we go over that. But more important than the visual aids is the fact that we have success stories that can stand up and say, I came into the company in this year, this is what I was doing. Then I moved over to this position. Then I moved over to this position, and now I'm here. It's one thing to say it. It's a whole other thing, Michael, to do it. And so a career path is critically important. I mean, if you were to move to Ohio and come to work for me, what would you be looking for? You know, and when we ask questions like that, I think, you know, if your listeners said, okay, I'm going to move, I'm going to go to work for Marty in Dayton, Ohio, what would I want? Like, what would get me excited about that? Well, I can tell you what wouldn't get me excited would be just go there and he says, well, work hard and maybe someday you can do more. But if he showed me some examples of people that have done that, if he talked to me about the growth and showed me how much they've grown and how they're on track to do that, well, then I think it becomes believable and somebody can actually get excited about the opportunity. I don't know if this will make sense for everyone listening, but my brother has a real good friend whose son plays for the Cincinnati Reds. He's a professional baseball player. He got drafted by the Reds, played in college, got drafted by the Reds, went to single A, did well at single A, went to high A, did well at high A, went to double A, did well at double A, went to triple A, did well at triple A, went to the big leagues. He's now been in the big leagues about 5 years. It's no different than that. You know, a baseball player can see clearly what their path is, and it's really pretty clear that you got to perform. You don't get to go from double A to the majors just because your dad was a professional player. If you're batting 162 and you've had 200 at bats and you've struck out 100 times, not only are you not going to major leagues, you're probably getting released from double A. So there has to be performance. You don't just get a job because of your last name or how long you've been here. It has to be a performance-based organization. And that's what we've created here. People do not get promoted because somebody quote unquote likes them. I got accused a long time ago of playing favorites. And when I first heard that, Michael, I was like, oh gosh, I mean, here you're whining about me playing favorites. And so then I was thinking about that and I'm like, no, you know what? I do play favorites and I'm not going to apologize for it. You do what I want you to do. You're my favorite. You're productive. You're a favorite. You do great quality work. You're a favorite. You bust your tail. You're a favorite. You're lazy. I don't like you. You don't do quality work. I don't like you. So if you want to perceive me playing favorites, has your own misguided conclusions as to your own poor performance, that's up to you. But Michael, I'll tell you, and for everyone listening, I do play favorites. My favorites are the ones that do the right thing. They're not in a position because of their last name or quote unquote like them. In a sense, I might like them as a person, but if I don't like their work, they're not going anywhere. So anyway, I'm throwing a lot at you, but it's, you know, this is wisdom coming from a 40-year veteran. I didn't know this stuff when I was your age, and it didn't work. And people didn't stay here. And I had temper tantrums and I had anger management issues and things like that. And I still have issues, but I'm getting better and better. And that's what it's all about, like we said at the start.
Yeah, so touched on a lot of things there. One thing that came to mind was, and especially discussing starting that whole other business that you identified somebody that could go off and continue that. How do you measure performance with your employees and document that? But on top of that, not just measure performance of, let's say, your field employees, because that's fairly straightforward, but how do you measure performance from employees that then you identify for a completely different role, say going from the field to becoming a salesperson, or so on and so forth? Because does that performance really carry over and so on? How do you measure that performance and identify those employees that you may put in a completely different role within the business?
First of all, the longer you work with someone and the more tasks that you give them, projects, whatever you want to call it, you start to get a pretty decent idea of what they're capable of doing. Now, I would encourage everyone that's listening to read the book called Strengths Finder. It's by the Gallup organization. It's a really good book. The Strengths Finder, I think the way the book still works, there's a test in there and you can find out your strengths. Once we get someone in our organization and they're being considered for a management role, we're going to have them take a Strengths Finder test and we're going to see where their talents are. Um, and, we know, for example, different talents manifest or do really well in a sales role, and different strengths do really well in a production role. We had a gentleman that was in a production role, and we used to, it's not how we do it anymore because we changed our compensation program here for the better, really. But you used to get a 2% bonus off any job that you brought in that you saw. If you're on the production crew, say you went to Michael's house and you started talking to Michael and you talked him into letting the sales team come out and give him a quote for a patio. And we sold you a $10,000 patio. Well, then the person that suggested that would get $200. Well, every year the guy that won that deal was Brent, and we kept working with Brent. And I would say I think that guy would be a fantastic salesperson. Um, and we just kept watching him, and we thought he could do that. We did the Strengths Finder; it did point to that. We put him in that role, and he's thriving. So I see a lot of companies that promote someone because they've been there so long. The biggest one that I see, Michael, is they take their top salesperson and they make them a sales manager. And in premise, like, I get why you would do that, but just because somebody can manage themselves and sell great guns of fire doesn't mean they can manage a sales team. There's three reasons people don't do what you need them to do. The first reason is you haven't properly trained or equipped them. The second reason is they don't have the capacity to do the job. That would be like taking your right fielder and put him in at shortstop. And at the end of the third inning, the shortstop's got 4 errors. Why? Because they're a right fielder. You're the one that put them at shortstop. That's not their problem. So the first reason is you didn't properly train or equip them. The second reason is they don't have the capacity to do the job. And the last reason somebody doesn't do what you need them to do is they have a bad attitude. And the most dangerous of all people in organizations are smart people with a bad attitude. So you might have a wonderfully talented landscaper, but he or she is constantly late. They're stirring up trouble. There's always some kind of a stench emanating from their area. And that's where it is. The reason the first filter is you haven't properly trained or equipped them, you always got to look at that. A good leader, a good manager, Michael, someone really devoted to growing their business, realizes that their success or failure is 100% on them. So if I have a team member that didn't do what I needed them to do today, I got to look myself in the mirror first and say, what did I do or not do that made them do that today? Well, I haven't trained them on how to handle an angry client. So I don't like the fact at all that they got into it with the client. That is terrible. And you would think they should know better. I also didn't help them a whole lot because I should have told them what we do when that happens. We train on that with our people. Okay. So, again, I'm sounding like I got it all figured out. I do not. This is all experience from, you know, stepping in so many holes throughout my business career, making so many mistakes, going home at night thinking, what am I doing? Why Why am I still dealing with this stuff? And then one day, I think what happens is you just wake up and you're like, no, we're going to do world class training. We're going to cover stuff. When something goes wrong, we're going to stop the presses and we're going to see why that happened before someone else gets hurt. And we're going to try to put some mechanisms, some training, some stop gaps so that that doesn't keep happening. And that I think is what's gotten me to where I am today. More than anything, Michael, we just make a lot less mistakes today than we did 40 years ago. And because we make a lot less mistakes, every day is a little more enjoyable. And the people that work here have a little bit more fun. You know, when I was your age, we didn't have any systems. I mean, I think back about some of the things we didn't have in place. I mean, safety training, that wasn't even existent here. So it's all, again, like I said at the start, it's about getting better and wanting to get better and trying to, look at the mistakes. Yes, they're frustrating, but the next morning you got to get up and you got to let that go and you got to try to make it a better day that day and take responsibility for those mistakes and work with your team to get better.
How often do you recommend having performance reviews with certain employees?
They do it twice a year in a formal setting where they have to sit down with their manager and go through things. Other than that, it's constant. If Michael does something that we don't like today or is against company policy or it didn't go well, that's addressed the next day in private. We don't let stuff fester. And that's a really hard thing to get across to managers and to have them understand that because you think you don't have time to do that, but the mistake's going to happen again. And basically, at the end of the day, whatever you're allowing, Michael, you're encouraging it. Well, I saw Paul could show up at 7:05, even though we're supposed to be here at 7. So I'm going to show up at 7:05. Well, I saw Jim didn't sweep his truck bed out at the end of the day, and he didn't sweep off his trailer like we're supposed to do, so gravel doesn't fly off when we're going down the highway. So I'm not going to do it. It's those things. And in landscaping companies, we all gather at the mothership. And whether you have 2 crews or I think we have 27 crews now, in the morning there is the chance to teach. So that's why it's important that your shop be organized, your bathroom be clean, your trucks be organized. And they kind of get a taste for how things go because when they go out on their own job sites, little microcultures form themselves and they don't have a good enough example of how things are supposed to be at home. So they go to someone else's home and they freelance. They do things they're not supposed to do. So that's why when you come on our campus here at Grunder, and we have several field trips a year where people can come in here and get an inside confidential look at us, um, people are impressed. And a lot of our teaching has to do with how we conduct ourselves here.
Last question. You mentioned the strengths test. Have you ever used personality tests? Do you use that with your employees?
Well, we have used them in the past. Yes, we've used DIS, but we've kind of focused on the Strengths Finder. It's kind of like, um, Michael, you and I'm going to guess we're in common because most entrepreneurs, they like bright, shiny objects. Okay. Sure. I'd like to go use the disc. I'd like to use the Wonderlic. There's all kinds of things that are out there. The Strengths Finder is the wagon that we hitched our tractor to, and we're staying all in with that. We do training with Strengths Finder experts out of North Carolina. They help us. We're constantly talking about it. It's helped our leadership team form greater bonds with one another when we understand what we're good at and what we're not good at. So we kind of stick with that. I suppose if we like exhaust that and we feel that we have gotten everything we can out of it and it's time to add something else to it, maybe we will. But the Strengths Finder has helped us so much and we're in a groove and we feel like we have so much more we can learn with it that I just kind of learned not to, you just get too many things open, Michael, and you're not good at any of them.
One last thing here, Marty. You have your landscaping company. It's successful. It's been going for many years now. You then start up Grow Group a while back. I'm just saying this to get to the point of why Grow Group? Why help others in the green industry? And you could have just coasted on GLC for as long as you wanted. What's the purpose in that for you?
Oh, I've never had anybody ask me that question like that. If you think it's because I'm a saint, I'm not. Um, Michael, it started out because I have a lot of energy, and there wasn't any place for a landscaping company to go to get help. This was 30 years ago when I started what was first known as Marty Grunder, would then get rebranded in 18 as the Grow Group. And I was tired of people asking me, what do you do in the winter? I was tired of, 9 months of income and 3 months of no income. So I started in the area that I felt I knew the most about, which was landscaping and business. And I just started teaching with, again, no clear plan. I didn't know that I never would have imagined that the event that we started, which today is known as Grow, will be in Columbus next February, Columbus, Ohio, and we'll have about 1,000 landscapers at it. I never would have guessed that it would turn into that. Never, ever. I never had a plan for that. I just wanted to help people. And if you can help people, whether that's landscaping, car repair, whatever it is, something you really like doing, and then you can make a living at it, that's pretty cool. And so for both companies, really my role in both is the same. I'm teaching and I'm helping people at the landscaping company. And Michael, I'm basically doing the exact same thing for landscapers all across the country in the other company. We don't work with companies in our marketplace because we don't want to be empowering and helping our competition. That's not to say we have it all figured out. And if they don't work with us, they're stupid. It's just we're gonna help landscapers, but not in Dayton and Cincinnati, Cincinnati, Ohio. So that's why we did it. It was a business. It was the entrepreneur in me. It's fun, and it's also been very good to me, not just financially but emotionally. I mean, we have probably grown more landscaping companies than any other consultancy in the history of the green industry, and I realize that's somewhat braggadocious, but we have had a major impact. And when I have people like you reach out to ask me to go on their podcast, I mean, this is a thrill for me, and I love helping people, and I'm 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 glad that I've made an impact, and I got a lot more that I want to do.
Marty, thank you so much for your time today and taking the time to come back on the show. Where can our audience go find out more about you, everything that you got going on? Where do you want to send them to?
I'll go to growgroupinc.com. That's probably the best place. Sign up for our weekly great idea. It comes out every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then Instagram and LinkedIn are our two most uh, prominent social media platforms. Grow Group on Instagram and LinkedIn, and then Marty Grunder on both. I'm trying to post more on Instagram because that's where a lot of young people like yourself are on, and I love friends. So come follow me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Marty.
Of course, man. You're a gem. Thank you.